Reddit No Sleep is one of the most popular subreddits of all time, and it's probably the most popular horror subreddit. And you've probably seen dozens, if not hundreds, of Reddit No Sleep story narrations pop up into your YouTube feed all the time with bizarrely long titles. You'll have, actually, let's just scroll down. When the stars and moon vanish from the night sky, you better hide, part two. Like, you have these kind of warning title or hey, hold on. Hey, quick question. How do your parents ground you? Because I'm starting to think that the way my mom does it is different than everyone else's way. These aren't really even story titles anymore. These are more like Quora or Yahoo Answers question prompts. And sometimes you'll get some very concise ones like Tomorrow Never Came, but the general trend, the general vibe of the place is titles like this. And you know, I feel very critical of this subreddit. I think that it's not at the place that it could potentially be. And I think that it's a problem for it to not fulfill its potential given that it's taken up such a large space in the horror community. It's essentially become what creepypasta used to be. You used to find creepypastas on 4chan, Creepypasta Wiki, creepypasta.com, all those old forum sites. Now you don't find creepypastas anymore. You find Reddit no sleep stories. And they're trying to do the thing that classic creepypastas did, where they present the story as completely true, non fabricated, all reality, all grounded. And there's nothing wrong with that conceptually. In fact, I think that's a fantastic idea most of the time because that way you can get the most amount of immersion possible. And I think that a strong sense of immersion can really strengthen a story in terms of how much you care about its characters, how much believability there is. It can benefit a story a lot. And that part I have no issue with. What I do have issue with is that Reddit is essentially not Reddit, my bad. No Sleep Reddit is essentially a LARP subreddit. Let's just go to the No Sleep rules. If you'll follow me right over here, notice the section that I'm highlighting, okay? So the first few rules are just the things that I talked about, okay? That, it has to be a horror story. The stories have to be grounded in reality in some way. Blah, blah, blah. Titles must follow specific guidelines. That's a little ironic. Um, yeah. But then you get down to the last couple of rules. Everything is true here, even if it's not. Users are to act as though everything is true on r slash no sleep and treat it as such in posts and comments. No debunking, disbelief, or criticism, constructive or otherwise. Comments must contribute to discussion. Cool. Although, as we just learned in the last rule, they're only allowed to contribute to discussion in very particular ways. Cool. Now, to give brief context, there is a subreddit affiliated with No Sleep called No Sleep Out of Character, I believe it's called, in which you are allowed to talk about stories without having to LARP as if they're real. But that subreddit is substantially less large than the actual Reddit No Sleep subreddit, and I don't think that it really matters regardless. Okay? Now, there is a huge issue that's very evident with rule number 8 in particular, okay? Basically, you're not allowed to give any feedback, really, to stories. And what this means is that you're going to have a lot of stories that are pretty bad. Just objectively, just their quality is not where it ideally should be. And a lot of that is because, I don't know, maybe the posts have a lot of inconsistencies. Like, for example, if let's say that I live in Yellowstone National Park for no reason, okay? Let's say that I'm a local in a nearby area, or I'm like a literal park ranger in the park. And somebody comes on Reddit No Sleep and they write a story about Yellowstone National Park. And because I'm a local and because I have personal experience with the park, I can totally tell that their story is bullshit. They're getting the geography of the park wrong. They're obviously not familiar with the layout of the park and like what's actually in the park or what kind of animals are in the park. They're clearly making up details that are a part of the park's history that aren't true. Let's say I see all that and I'm like, okay, that makes this story inherently less realistic. And then I think to myself, but hold on. No Sleep is all about realism. You're supposed to ground your story in reality such that it can be believed, right? So if I were to tell that person who posted the story, hey, I noticed this, and this inconsistency or falsehood, that makes your story less believable, therefore it fails the purpose of this subreddit, I would be punished because I am no longer doing the LARP. And of course, somebody might argue, okay, well, that's just the subreddit's rules. If you're going to use the subreddit, you should agree to their rules. And that's true. But it is nonetheless frustrating for one of the largest subreddits that is dedicated to horror, that has essentially become one of the only free forum areas for writers to post their stories, right, for free, that this Reddit has a rule that inherently lowers the quality of its contributors. I think that that's pretty disappointing. And it could be easily fixed if the rule was just revoked. I don't understand the necessity of this rule. Like, okay, whatever. It's for the no sleep experience, right? It's a unique experience where, for the sake of immersion, everybody pretends it's real. But the problem is just that if immersion is so important, right? But we can't criticize a story potentially because it breaks immersion, because it has loads of inaccuracies, well, then you've compromised, really, on the importance of immersion. It's like a weird paradox where by trying to secure a high immersion level, you're just lowering the actual immersion level. Because people are going to look at these stories and they're going to say, hold on a moment, this shit, I don't believe this shit for a second. And I'm not just talking about people who are unwilling to extend their suspension of disbelief. I'm talking about if a story has blatant just inconsistencies and falsehoods about the setting that it's taking place in. For example, the immersion's already dead from the get-go, if that's the case. And yet this rule is still being enforced for the sake of quote-unquote upholding immersion. It's just very backwards. Um And so if you were to ask me personally, if I ran No Sleep, I would say you can absolutely keep, the veil of it being real. You can absolutely enforce rules that the stories themselves must make an attempt to seem real, right? But if you really care about keeping those stories as real as possible, that allow for criticism, allow for, people to look at these stories with scrutiny so that this immersion level is truly upheld. And you know what? If people don't want their immersion broken, just have them not look at the comments. Or even better, right? Maybe there can be comment spoilers, right? Or comment, what do they call them? Comment flares on Reddit, right? Where the comment is flared as containing criticism of the story and, could be in some kind of spoilers text so that you have to manually click on it to actually see it and see what it says. That way, for people who don't want to see that kind of stuff in the comments and just want to read the story and that's it, and LARP as if it's real, they can do that to their own pleasure. That would be my recommendation. But what do you guys think? I mean, you guys are probably part of the horror and writing community as well. You've probably heard of No Sleep. You've probably been involved with it in some way. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below what your thought process is, what your recommendations would be. Do you agree or disagree with me? You know? And if you enjoyed this video and want to see others like it, please consider subscribing and checking out other videos on my channel. My name is Icy Dice, and I will see you in the next video.